over here, okay? All right, so next up, we have Meagan Fallone. Meagan is an entrepreneur, a designer, and a passionate mountaineer. Bringing these diverse talents together as the CEO of Barefoot College International, she exemplifies exceptional vision and commitment to social leadership while advocating for strong professional practices within a social innovation context.
Barefoot College is an extraordinary place. Imagine somewhere where words like social justice, inclusion, diversity, they're not words, they're a way of life. They've been a way of life there since 1972, and we're on our third generation of people living and working for Barefoot College. It is based on, they need to move the slide. It's based on the lifestyle and work style of Mahatma Gandhi, and central to that are two beliefs. The first one is, can you please change the slide? To live simply so that others may simply live. And this attitude, this philosophy of always asking ourselves what we can do without is very much at the heart of how we operate. And the second one is Gandhi believed very strongly in honoring the wisdom, skills, and knowledge that existed in poor rural communities. So our work is based on working with the poorest of the poor, living on less than $1.25 a day, not only in India, but now across the global south. Go ahead. Okay, got to move faster. I'm going to exceed my time. Whoop, nope, back one. Awesome. Great, thanks. Okay, much easier. So we work in 5 program areas. We work on water, we work on renewable energy, we work on education, non-formal education, and we work on livelihood and enterprise development. We also work on advocacy, and that takes 2 forms. One, we certainly work on advocacy for rights-based information and rights-based programs in India to disseminate that knowledge to the poor, but also very much on advocacy with governments to change policy. We are a true social enterprise in the sense that we are working on what I call triple bottom line delivery. Yes, we deliver programs. More importantly, we use human-centric design to look at the social norms, barriers, and systems that have created inequality in the first place. And we very consciously design around those. And lastly, we work on systemic and long-term policy change so that the things that we're doing are institutionalized in government budgets and government policies so that these kinds of inequalities can actually be eradicated. The campus is set in rural Rajasthan between Jaipur and Ajmer, and we have more than 260 people living on the main campus in Rajasthan. It's fully solar electrified. We exist on rainwater harvesting, and it has been solar electrified since 1998, which is pretty exceptional. It is, as far as I know, the only college in the world built by and for the rural poor. So you see me speaking to you today, but I am not Barefoot College. Barefoot College was built by a beautiful collaboration between urban educated youth and youth in rural areas. And this magic of bringing these 2 groups together is, I think, what has sustained it through all these years and what we now work very hard to exemplify. So we redefined professionalism. We like to talk about professionals as being confident, competent, and having belief. Having a certificate doesn't make you a professional in our eyes. We started in education, but non-formal education, and in fact trying to capture all of the children in rural areas who do not attend state school for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, they're needed to help families subsist in their way of life. That is not to be confused with child labor, but it takes everyone in a family to survive in rural India still today. So primarily, these are girls. More than 80% of the girls who attend this program come from families where their brothers most probably do go to school, but they, in fact, do not. They herd goats, in fact, in many cases, or work in fields from 6:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the evening. And then they go home, do their chores, and come to our solar-powered night schools. The curriculum is a big change from what you find in the government schools. First of all, the teachers are from the community. They're non-formally trained teachers, and they are capacity built by us to be able to deliver a place-based, issue-based, and civil society development curriculum. This means that mathematics lessons are based on crop rotation and crop yield. We figured out early on that if you can give girls fantastic skills in practical knowledge, their value at home goes up dramatically. Fathers are far less likely to see them as a marriageable financial commodity and much more likely to want to keep them around at home. What happens is we run a children's parliament, so we have a prime minister, we have minister of education, minister of water, and incredibly, in 35 years, there's never been a boy prime minister. We've only ever had girl prime ministers. It is a thoroughly engaged and interactive program that is really extraordinary and unique in the fact that children are really encouraged to be 100% who they are and to participate fully in their own learning. We'll come back to why that's important in a minute. Our exploration of solar energy started very early on, and this is a remarkable program now which has gone global, and so I'll talk about this just for a minute. We work in solar-powered reverse osmosis desalinization of water because water is one of our primary areas of work. More importantly, we also started working on solar cooking and then solar home lighting. We began looking at light as a human right, not a luxury item that you ought to be able to be rich to afford. Access to clean light is a human right, and it enables everything that we would like to see positively coming out of the developing world. So for 1.8 billion people, this is light. And for many million children, this is how they study at night. This is a young boy in Belize, and then they throw the batteries in the water source outside the door when they're done. But it's a bit tough to learn to read and to really interact and be able to do livelihood or be able to have a healthy environment. The number one killer of women in the developing world is the inhalation of black smoke coming off of bad kerosene, which is what you see in this picture. And whole families use that for light at night. So we'd like to change that picture. We think this is a much more holistically healthy picture for children to learn with good quality light and also whole households illuminated. In 2010, we started training women and men to be solar engineers. We started looking at why can't citizens be empowered with technology and technology knowledge to be able to serve their own basic needs. And what came out of that was a couple of extraordinary lessons. The first one is we learned very quickly on men are untrainable. They're restless, they're mobile, and the minute they learn a skill, they run to the nearest city and they leave their communities. And women, on the other hand, were completely the opposite. Women are grounded in their community. What they do for their families, for their children, for their way of life, and nothing motivates them to leave and abandon the people that they love and care about. So we decided that they were the best bet going. Now, that was before I learned from the United Nations that, in fact, for every dollar earned by a man in the developing world, only 27 cents go back to his family. For a woman, it's 85 cents. So, I mean, I'm always looking for the economic angle here to try to prove what I instinctually know, which is that women are by far the best investment we can make in the developing world. So, we started bringing women from countries all over the developing world to India for 6 months to train them as fully functioning solar engineers. Now, this is an extraordinary program, and guess who pays for it? The government of India. Ministry of External Affairs has a program called ITEC, the India Technical Economic Cooperation Program, and the Barefoot College is one of the accredited programs in this. That means I can choose up to 40 women every 6 months from any developing world country, and the government of India pays their travel and training to come to India. Now there's the catch. I only take women who are illiterate and semi-literate. So 40 women from 10 countries who can't read and write, who don't speak the same language, who've never left their villages, make a journey to India that is epic every 6 months. Their tenacity, courage, absolute, clear commitment to making the quality of life better for each and every person in their community is extraordinary and is absolutely admirable. They are not learning light technology. This is not Legoland. These women are learning circuitry. They are building circuit boards. They're fabricating solar home lighting systems. And in fact, today, these women have made this program the single largest distributor of solar home lighting systems at the bottom of the pyramid in the world. 2 years ago, we were very blessed. I had a fabulous opportunity to meet Lisa Jackson from Apple. And Apple was looking to learn with us about what would happen when we put really high-quality technology into the hands of the rural poor. And we started a collaboration to integrate Apple quality digital tools into both the solar engineering training and also into our education programs. And what has come from that is an amplification of the impact, both in terms of the women's capacity, but also our capacity to disseminate to many more people this information. What you might not realize when you look at this slide is that all of the circuitry was designed, in fact, by illiterate and semi-literate, non-formally educated rural Indians. To be able to be one of only 2 Indian organizations who have exported their model globally, I think is something really to be proud of. And I am most happy to share that with you because it's something you all should be proud of too. When we bring light, we don't just bring a lantern, we light up a whole household. And we do it for every household in a community. And they are means tested. They are participants in this program. They have helped us to develop this into a blended social enterprise, which now sells, markets, and sends these home lighting systems around the developing world. In 2008, we had this sort of a footprint, 5 countries, and today we are in 81 countries. There's not too many for-profit enterprises that have had that kind of scale and that kind of ability to partner with organizations all over the world. I think that's one of the beauties of social enterprise. But we've trained more than 960 women solar engineers. And in recognition of that, the government of India has now funded us to build 5 Barefoot colleges in sub-Saharan Africa. We're also working on one in Guatemala, one in Fiji, and one in Myanmar. So this model is going to go global in a very large way. We recognized that data and being able to report on impact was incredibly important, and we couldn't afford to buy any of the fancy data collection services. So we went to the drawing board on a Thursday morning, and within a week we'd figured out how to use a lot of open source software and be able to create our own, which we did. And it's now delivered by women and by my staff around the world in communities themselves, and that data is fed back. These are just some images from the women. That data is fed back, and we use that data then to be able to advocate with government. We don't talk about gender. I don't talk about gender equality when we go to a community to introduce this model. But you can bet when she climbs up there and puts that panel and turns on the lights and the whole village, gives the village exactly what they want most. Her place, her recognition, her role as a role model for other girls and even young boys is assured. We don't need to talk about gender. She becomes a wise professional in that community, and her role is changed forever. But of course, it's never enough, and so she asked for more, and we said, okay, what do you want? Because everything we do at Barefoot comes from the bottom up. And she told us there were 8 categories of information that she wanted in order to be able to sustain long-term economic viability. So we started doing microenterprise with her, basic rights-based work, home budgeting, women's reproductive health and wellness. They now become teachers of all of these skills. They have to high five after they learn everything. That's not to say great job, it's to say you have to teach 5 more women. So it's gone viral through the women. All of these things are digitized without language so that they can be disseminated across languages. These are tribal women, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Jharkhand. These are women who never even knew what a digital tool was, and they're taking an iPad back to their villages. We started developing sustainable livelihoods and creating curriculums around sustainable livelihoods for those communities so they could then build economic mobility and economic energy on that. We launched our first round of honey last year. It was sold out. We'll now go to 5 states in India with the honey model. And so you too can buy Be Barefoot honey soon, coming near you. We developed a clothing line and a training program for master trainers within the solar engineers, which they now train on in their training centers. This line has been incredibly successful in East Africa, and again will move to Latin America this year. The women were really proud to present the Prime Minister with some of their products last year. In fact, he's, for those of you who don't know him, he loves technology, and so he was really fascinated with the solar technology. I think the important thing to note is that in thinking about India as a global leader, this shift that's coming now, a leader within a South-South conversation, and really driving different kinds of development initiatives, we are really looking at this as the first, and I hope of many, initiatives that partner with government, with host governments in the Global South, to take Indian best practices of fine community work and show their relevance to all developing world countries. This problem of the digital divide and inequality that exists between those of us who have access to energy, access to connectivity, and access to content, which means we can learn and access what we'd like to know, is a critical issue, and in its wake comes a lot of the issues that we're finding around radicalism. And in the space where there's no information, good information comes slower somehow than bad information. So we started looking at the existing model we have and how it can scale even further. And since there's a workshop in every community that has 300 watts of power on it, we then went to our in-house R&D team, also non-formally educated. I think there's one in that team who has 8 years of primary school. And we built a solar-powered iPad charger, started putting Wi-Fi routers that are solar-powered into rural communities, tribal communities in India first, and then using the digital tools for kids to be able to exchange and to develop their own content to share. So I'm going to leave you on that note, and with just one final thought, which is a Gandhi thought, which is we may never know the effect of our actions, but if we do nothing, nothing will change. Okay.